What makes your life good? The next slide, please. Conversely, what makes a death good? Again, not in the abstract. What would make your death good or as good as possible? So these are not easy questions. I urge you to think about them after we leave here today. Maybe write a few things down. We're often nudged to think about certain pictures in our life. And these are some to think about, to maybe write about. I want to commend you if you are interested in learning more about pondering questions like this, to look into Kate Bowler. Her podcasts are really wonderful. There's a particular one about thinking about a good death, where she interviews Thomas Lynch. It's called Good Grief. So you can look that up online. Kate has been a podcaster for a number of years. She is a professor of religious history at Duke, and she's a really excellent speaker. So I commend you to her work. So let's talk about this a little bit. It helps to normalize death, to talk about it, and help us have a little bit of sense that we have some control over it. So the next slide, please. I'm going to be sharing with you in my slides some books that have been informative and that I also would recommend to you. This first one on the slide here is Atul Gawande's Being Mortal. It's a few years old, but not to be missed if you have not read it. In it, he says death is not a failure, okay? And that we can make sense of what's confusing or strange or disturbing about it when we come to know it a little bit better. And the essential truth is, as Kim said before, everyone's going to die. When I'm a volunteer at the Waverly Farmers Market and we look out on the crowds on a summer day, some people are there for fresh produce. Some people are there for fresh bottles of milk or what have you. Everybody is there for some want that they have, some need that they have maybe in their pantry. The truth is that everyone at the market will need some kind of end-of-life care plan. And yet we have fear. So again, we can learn to take some of the fear out of it by talking. The next slide, please. So what is strange and what is disturbing or confusing about dying for most of us? These are very common things here that people are afraid of. We're afraid of dying alone. Very, very reasonable fear. We're afraid of being in pain. That may be physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. We are afraid that we will be forgotten. So loss of our legacy, the things that we are leaving behind will somehow disappear. We worry about the people we're going to leave behind. And very important, there are, at the end of life, many people may feel a sense that they have lost or are about to lose opportunities to repair relationships that may have been breached. So the opportunity to say at the end of life, I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, will you forgive me? These are known to be great ways of reconciling relationships at the end of life. Similarly, unaddressed regrets, or what we call unfinished business. If only I had said such and such, if only I had done such and such. It may again be related to a relationship, or whatever it might be. So think about those things. You may feel that those things are far away, and it's uncomfortable to think about. But I urge you to get a little bit more comfortable as you can in thinking about these things that may crop up when you realize that your time may be short. In general, people worry about uncertainty. We don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know how it will go. So we feel a loss of control. So again, think about these things, especially the things around regret or fixing relationships. Often they go unspoken until a very late stage. So I urge you to tap into those tender things. The next slide, please. Another book that I would highly recommend and was very, very informative for me, A Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory. My dear husband found this book for me in the neighborhood in a free box, and he picked it up and brought it home, and he said, I know that you will love this book. And I did. Caitlin Doughty is the author. She is an early advocate, an educator around what we might call the death positive or good death movement. As the book title indicates, she started her work in a crematory. She's now a funeral home owner, and it's very, very informative with relation to some of the very specific things that we might not know happen when one is cremated or one is embalmed, and some of those details that we would rather not know too much about. If you read this book, you will know about those things, and it's extremely enlightening. So to touch on the medical piece of death and dying for just a moment, we have had decades and decades of wonderful medical advances. There's no doubt about it. And we here in the Baltimore area are so fortunate to have so many wonderful medical institutions and resources here for us. At the same time, people who are involved or drawn to what we are calling this good death movement, there's a sense that the medicalization of dying takes the human element out a bit, and often a lot. So I would say that this death positive or good death movement is kind of a response to that sense that dying has become a medical issue only. Caitlin, the author of this book, has said, there's never been a time in history when our culture has broken so completely with traditional rituals and beliefs surrounding mortality. And I'll talk a little bit more about ritual at the end. The next slide, please. So just a real brief timeline of what we might call this death positive movement. So looking back to mid-70s or so, maybe a little bit earlier with the advent of hospice in the United Kingdom, living wills and advance directives, Dan is going to cover after I'm finished here. In the 80s, the emergence of palliative care and AIDS activism, which was really about focusing on respectful and dignified treatment of the body after death. Home funerals, and then conservation cemeteries and green burial, which is what we are here to talk about today. The next slide, please. So natural or green burial, in a nutshell, it's an important choice in how our bodies or our loved ones' remains are cared for. It gives us a sense of agency and control as the end of life approaches at a time that often feels really out of control for people. There tends to be less rushing to hand off the body. So we are so used to the process of as soon as someone has died, call the funeral home. There's no need to rush. So green burial and the attendant sort of processes helps with that sense of slowing down a little bit. Respectful and reverent treatment of the body and the land to which it is returned. So again, a little taste of what it's like to volunteer at the Waverly Market. By and large, people do not want to talk to us about green burial. I will say that in general terms, a lot of people just like to walk by our booth. Dan is a great person at going out and talking to people and drawing them in. But people want to say something like, I'll talk to you some other time about this. I'm not ready for this yet. Or I'll talk to you about it because my parents should know. Those kinds of things. The important thing to know is that we let people know that they have this as a choice. It's an important choice. We are not just required anymore to do what our parents or grandparents had always done. The traditional funeral, the embalming, the cremation, all those are still options. Green or natural burial is another option that we want to make people aware of. And when we make time to choose our end-of-life plans, put them in writing and share them with our loved ones, there's often less anxiety at the end of life. It's easier for people to let go when they know that they have made their plans clear. There's less tendency to rush and more time when a family and a dying person have time to adjust to what's happening. It's really setting up the family and the loved ones for perhaps a healthier grieving period. The next slide, please. Green burial as an act of faith. Thank you to our friends at Serenity Ridge for having this list on their website, which just outlines in general terms how the practices of many world religions related to the burial of the dead overlap with the essentials of green burial. Respect in preparation of the body, use of simple cloths for wrapping the body, biodegradable caskets when a casket is used, direct burial, and ecological sustainability as a goal and commitment. Next slide, please. So here are just a couple of pictures that show the option of some beautifully woven burial baskets and cloth shrouds. They're widely available now. So I urge you, if you have not looked into these as a choice, they're very lovely and biodegradable, which is one of our goals. And they are no longer a mystery or hard to find. So thank you for that. Again, green burial tends to be a more participatory process for the family. It's about taking back the rightful role of the family and loved ones so that they can be involved and participate in the burial, in the preparation of the body. This quote from Green Burial as an Act of Faith from Christian Century magazine: washing and dressing your loved one's body at home, accompanying them to the gravesite, physically laying them into the ground and covering their body with dirt. It connects us to our loved one at the end of life rather than handing that person off to a funeral home. I just want to say that the good news is, according to the NIH, that where Americans die has shifted over the past 15 years away from hospitals and more toward home. So that is good news for people who choose to have that as part of their end of life. So slowing down, a home funeral or a wake is also another option. This book, Resilient Grieving, is written by Lucy Hone. She is a woman who is a PhD in the philosophy of happiness, believe it or not, but she suffered an unimaginable loss, the loss of her 12-year-old daughter in a car accident. And she talks about her grieving process and how she and her family were able to move through that. They live in New Zealand, and she said that she learned some important traditions from the native culture there in New Zealand, which helped their family when they brought their daughter home and had her at home for a few days. And she says, having the body of a loved one at home in the days following the death provides our hearts and minds with a chance to catch up. It gives us time to process the reality of our loss. So again, a home funeral is another option that you may wish to consider along with green burial. And it's not new. It's how we've done things for centuries before. Another option is having an end-of-life doula. An end-of-life doula is someone who is not a medical professional, but who may have special training and provides the family with emotional and physical, spiritual support, information, and advocacy for the family and the dying person. End-of-life doulas are modeled on the work of a birth doula. There's a lot of similarity between someone who's preparing to give birth and someone is preparing for dying. So again, the doula and others are complementary to whatever medical professionals may be involved in someone's care, if that is part of the picture. And it helps us to remember that birth, giving birth, dying, preparing to die are not just medical experiences, but they are the bookends of our existence here.